and feel honored to have been invited to come this evening and join you at this very prestigious occasion when you do the Journalism Excellence Award of this year. I am honored to join you also to just be acquainted with some of you. I see so many familiar faces that I meet often in the field, but today we can meet and socialize together. The media, as you know, plays a very important role in any society. I don't need to overemphasize that point. But I want to say that media accountability and good governance, which I'm informed is the theme of this year, for this year, makes for an interesting subject at a very interesting time for our country. These two are at war as we speak. There's a quiet transition taking place in our country. Many are yet to come to accept or to come to terms with it. It is one of the interesting things happening in our country that Kenyans are counting on the media to capture and explain accurately and accountably. We are also in the middle of a tug of war on corruption and envisaged constitutional reforms. We have a corruption war in which suspects have tried to control and shape the narrative and even provide some kind of live feed. Their narrative is that the war is a witch hunt. In an atmosphere that is increasingly getting too charged and too emotional too early, you have seen a war being waged on the reputations of journalists and the entire media houses. So despite the general calm, we are actually in the middle of a toxic engagement that can be confused and confusing. I want to begin, therefore, by acknowledging our media for the courage to steer the conversation back to what really matters. You have seen the media do some exemplary reporting, particularly on the emotive subjects of corruption and governance. Where we have been baited to discuss witch hunt or no witch hunt, the media have pushed back and refocused the debate to the issue of whether you have corruption or not in the first place, and whether there's abuse of power and office in this country or not. It is a commendable effort that we have to acknowledge. That did not begin today, though. Over the decades, our media has distinguished itself through bold coverage of issues ranging from corruption to governance to politics and human rights. That bold exposition has triggered debate that made Kenyans participate actively in the affairs of their country and prevented us from sliding to the abyss like many other African countries. But as you know, you'll know where we're coming from. I know of a number of journalists who have paid a very heavy price for standing on principle. Those dark days when truth was equivalent to treason, I know very many journalists who went to the dungeons. I myself have shared cells with journalists, either next door at the infamous Nyayo House or in the detention camps out there. Some journalists had to run away into exile because of standing on principle. So sometimes it's necessary to remind Kenyans where we're coming from. The kind of freedom that we enjoy today did not just come from heaven. It's a product of a lot of struggle by the people of Kenya, and many Kenyans paid a very heavy price for it. So you have sustained the crusading tradition that helped this country overcome the single-party era and also made us realize our new constitution. You have been through the Golden Bug, the Sabasaba riots, the Anglo-leasing, the NYS, and now the dam scandal, to mention about a few of the mega corruptions that the media have boldly shaped conversation on. It's a glorious tradition that we must continue, and we must safeguard against those who want to trash and to trample on it. Like everywhere else, the media in Kenya are far from perfect. They make big mistakes. Sometimes mistakes seem deliberate or sponsored, to use a Kenyan word, while others look like normal human error. Whatever the case, any mistake by the media, no matter the cause, often has grave ramifications. I therefore want to encourage you to always realize that as journalists, you are writers of the early drafts of our history. Historians, biographers, and future politicians and other leaders in all fields will draw heavily from the early drafts that you write today. It is a heavy responsibility you must bear with extreme care, without emotions or feelings. Like every other public figure, I have occasionally felt maligned and misunderstood by the media. But I reject the attempt to generalize that into some kind of a vendetta and a permanent war against journalists. I remain opposed to any kind of threats to or any organized campaign against the credibility of the media or individual journalists. But let us face it, I know that our media feel embattled right now because of the atmosphere of mistrust that continues to be created in the country by a section of the electorate and the political leadership. We need to know that just as a section of leaders seek to turn journalists into demons and enemies of the nation, an equally significant section of the political class, those who have walked the full journey that this country has had to travel, and who know the role of the media, that the media has played in that path to where we are today, still believe the majority of journalists do noble and necessary work, and we will stand with you. We recognize that you preserve our imperfect democracy and protect the rights of our citizens. We recognize that our citizens depend on you to separate lies from the truth at a time a tide of misinformation is passing as breaking news. The media cannot afford to be caged. You cannot afford to be cornered. You cannot afford to surrender. From history, we know that those who would destroy democracy begin by destroying the media. We know from history that insecure leaders with skeletons to hide crave adulation and unquestioning praise by the media. We know that such a war is underway in our country. And in history, you just go back to Hitler's Germany and look at his Minister of Propaganda, Mr. Goebbels, who coined the theory of the great lie, that if a lie is repeated several times, it becomes the truth. And they went on to master the media and created this propaganda machinery that was called the Fox Empfänger. There's the Volkswagen, then the Fox Empfänger. That was a receiver that was planted in each and every household, and each time blaring the Nazi propaganda, and therefore indoctrinating the people to believe that what Hitler was saying was the truth. The consequences is well known to everybody. As a country, we must stand against organized movement to discredit mainstream journalism. We lose every time we allow politicians to brand everything that appears in mainstream media as fake news or opposition politics when it does not favor them. Such threats create not only a threatening atmosphere for the media, but also confusion in the country. Discrediting the media makes it difficult for citizens to be alert and informed. It makes it difficult for citizens to tell what really is going on and to pay attention to the debates taking place. It also makes it harder for the media to get the public to pay attention to the important information that it has, be it on corruption, governance, or even terrorism. It may be a strategy in our unending politicking to make it difficult for the people to tell the truth from the lies, but it needs to be stopped. In this kind of environment, the media will have to work harder and build trust. We will need to do more and ensure they show us the documents and sources they are using for the stories when need be. They have to take extra care and ensure that they get the story right before running it. For journalists to live up to this calling, they need personal inner conviction. That is not enough. They need support of their employers. I believe that as part of the effort to cushion our media and help them cushion our democracy, media houses must invest in their journalists. Journalists need freedom, they need safety, they need good pay, they need a clear career progression path, they need job security, and they need a sound working environment. To get credible stories that get to the bottom of the issues that matter to our country and that shape our government policy, journalists need to be given time, freedom, and resources. We will not get to the bottom of the corruption and governance challenges plaguing this country when media owners align themselves with suspects and tell journalists to drop that story when the reporters are denied the money and the related resources to follow corruption stories to logical conclusion. And when journalists follow up critical stories, report threats to their lives, media houses should take up such reports seriously and work with the state to ensure the corrupt do not use threats to silence media. I want to say this as I conclude. To win the war on corruption, to register our governance systems and align them to our changing needs, we need the truth to win over propaganda and lies. It is the only way to stop misinformation from shaping public opinion. And one incident I want to quote here. 2 days ago, Nation media ran a story about Kenyan Parliament sending a bloated delegation to some nondescript conference of parliamentarians in the Nashville, Tennessee, United States. They said 85 delegates. The following day, there was a heated debate in Parliament. Members of Parliament threatening the national media that they're going to throw them out of Parliament for misreporting this information. What they did not tell the nation is how many delegates of Kenyans went to Nashville, Tennessee. Because I also have my sources where the nation got it. That, as a matter of fact, it is not 85, it was 90. Kenyans are there, when the United States, the host, has only got 9 people. And Nigeria, which has got the second largest, has got 20. Brazil has got 9 people. Japan sent 6. Portugal, 2. And Kenya, 90. So, including the 2 speakers of the houses. The Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate. It's a shame. And the nation seemed to have recoiled because they were threatening the parliament. Stand by the truth, say it as it is. The parliament owes this country an explanation, where they have to be sending bloated delegations to conferences which bring no benefit to our country. Many countries now are tired of receiving Kenyan delegations. Even Kenyan embassies abroad will tell you they are tired. If they're not members of the National Assembly and Senate, they are MCAs running around that they're coming to do benchmarking. The other day in Dubai, I was transiting and I meet a whole county assembly from one of our counties. I don't want to mention which one, that they are going to do benchmarking in Dubai. Dubai does not have a devolved system. Dubai has got a ruler who appoints people all over. So they don't have people to go and benchmark with. It is a shame the way these elected institutions are wasting our money is something that must be brought to a halt, and our media must stand for the truth, because the truth will set you free. Thank you very much.